He sleeps with a snake every night, and what happens next will deeply surprise you. Have you ever wondered how far a person would go to achieve wealth and power? In a city where ancient traditions intertwine with the mysteries of the night, a man uncovers a secret so profound it defies understanding. When the moon reaches its highest point, something extraordinary happens, forever changing the fate of a family and an empire. This story involves unimaginable sacrifices, difficult choices, and dark secrets guarded for generations. In a duel of cunning and courage, two brothers face off in an epic journey where only one can claim the ultimate prize. Curious to know what lurks in the darkness of midnight? Don't miss a minute of this fascinating narrative that will grip you from beginning to end. Click now and uncover the mysteries that await you. Once upon a time, in the fabulous city of Ed, there lived a very wealthy businessman named Moti, who had a highly successful company with branches all over the country. However, Moti had two sons who were twins and were born on the same day. His wife died giving birth to the twins, so Moti loved and cherished them greatly. The first son's name was A, while the second son was named Ucha. Both sons grew up to be very intelligent and smart, but their personalities were completely opposite. Ema was very kind and compassionate. He cared for the poor and offered help whenever he could. Many people loved and admired Ema, but Ucha, his brother, was very rude and lacked compassion. He despised the poor and looked down on them. Ema felt privileged to have so much and always helped the poor, but Ucha believed that only lazy people were poor. Moti noticed that A was very passionate and everyone loved him, so he wanted him to be the successor of his company, but Ucha was the older twin and by right, he should take over the company when Moti retired. This issue gave Moti many sleepless nights, but after thinking for a long time, he decided to create a competition between Ema and Ucha, and whoever won the competition would be the heir to his empire. One day he called his two sons to a very important meeting. Present at the meeting were his two sons and his lawyers. You have grown to be very intelligent and smart, and I am very proud of both of you. But, as you know, I will be retiring soon and one of you must take over my empire. The question is, who will it be? Immediately, Ucha smiled at his father's questions and abruptly interrupted him, not waiting for him to finish. I believe we all know the answer to that question. I am the firstborn, and by right, I am the true heir to your empire. Really? Asked his father. You are only 5 minutes older than your younger brother. If the heir to my empire were decided based on age, you both should have equal ownership. What do you mean? Am I not your firstborn? You both are my sons, and I love you equally, his father replied. I feel it would not be fair for someone to inherit my empire based on age. I want you to show me that you are capable. So, what do you propose? Ucha said. Good question. Since both of you are single and not yet married, a popular saying goes, behind every successful man, there is a woman. Are you saying we have to get married first? Yes, whichever of you gets married first will be the true heir to my empire. Ucha laughed joyfully at his father's proposal. He felt it was a very easy task. That's not a problem. I will bring you a wife before the end of the week. Meanwhile, Eme just sat and listened attentively to everything his father was saying. Eme, don't you have anything to say? Moti asked. Eme smiled at his father's question and replied, You are a very wise man. If your empire is the price, I am sure the task will not be so easy. I am eagerly waiting for the terms and conditions. Moti smiled at Eme's words and applauded his intelligence. Then he gestured for his lawyer to hand each of them a document. From now on, you both will no longer have access to your father's wealth. A stipulated amount of money will be given to each of you. It will be enough to rent a house and feed you for 3 months, Moti continued. You have 1 year to bring home a woman who genuinely and truly loves you, even as a commoner. You have enough money to feed yourself for 3 months, and in those 3 months, you should be able to get a job that will sustain you for the whole year. A smiled at his father's words, calmly signed the documents, and promised his father that he would not disappoint him. Then he stood up and left the room. But Ucha, on the other hand, sat in anger. How do you expect me to find a wife in less than a year with crumbs? What kind of house can this money buy? Ucha complained. However, Moti told Ucha that his decision was final and that if Eme returned with a responsible bride before him, then Eme would be the heir to his empire. You have 1 week to vacate my house and go in search of a responsible bride, said Moti and left. Eme went into his room and started thinking of a way to find a virtuous woman who would genuinely love him for his personality and not just for what he has. After contemplating for a few hours, Eme decided that he would go to a faraway city and pretend to be a crippled man. He told himself that if any woman could love a crippled man, she would definitely be a good wife. So he began to think of the right city to visit. Meanwhile, Ucha was agitated by his father's words. He was very upset and angry because he despised the poor and therefore couldn't imagine living among poor people as one of them. Instead of thinking of a way to achieve the goal of finding a virtuous wife, Ucha began to think of ways to deceive his father into giving him the inheritance regardless of his decision. He went to see his father and tried to persuade him to change his mind. I am the true heir to your empire, father. Why are you trying to deny me my birthright? Moti smiled at Ucha's arrogance and pride. My parents died when I was only 10 years old. They left me absolutely nothing. Your mother and I had to build this empire with our blood and sweat over the years. You should be grateful for being where you are. Are you trying to say we should suffer like you did because you suffered? You must learn to be grateful for what you have and what you are given. Bring me a virtuous woman to be your wife and inherit my empire. How hard is that? Moti was deeply hurt and angered by Ucha's words and, in anger, instructed his security not to allow either of his sons near his company or house until after the 12 months, which was the deadline he gave them both to find a virtuous wife. Eme was a very generous man and had helped many people in need, so he had many people he could turn to for help. He remembered an occasion when he helped a man named David, whom he saw standing on the road with a sign asking for a job. So he went to his father's company and found David. He told David that he wanted to understand what it was like to be poor, so he was looking for a small village with good people. David laughed at Eme. He thought Eme was joking, but when he realized Eme was serious, he told Eme about a village called Oya, not far from his hometown. The people of Oya were well known for their benevolence and generosity. I think you will like it there and also learn a lot, David convinced Eme. Eme deeply thanked David for his assistance and went home to pack his things for the journey to the village of Oya. He went to the market to buy some local clothes and a wheelchair as well. After that, he began his journey to the village of Oya. He arrived at the village after a few days, found an unfinished building, and changed into the local clothes he had bought. Then he started practicing how to use the wheelchair. He practiced for a week until he could move around with ease. Then he entered the village in the wheelchair, pretending to be crippled. Eme rented a small house that was isolated from the main village so that no one could monitor him. He divided the remaining money into 2 parts and kept one half for his food. The next day, Eme wheeled around the market to make sure no one could recognize him, but he discovered that the people of Oya were quite the opposite of what David had described. Most of them were rude and harsh, only a few villagers were welcoming. However, the village of Oya was full of many opportunities because its economy was thriving. Eme observed the market for a few weeks and decided to venture into the business of selling vegetables. He noticed that there was a lot of profit in this venture and that it wouldn't be too difficult for him, as he was pretending to be a crippled man. Eme woke up at 5 a.m. to visit vegetable farmers and bought vegetables from them very cheaply. Then he would go to the market and display his products. At first, his business wasn't doing very well, but as many people began to get to know Eme and see how kind he was, his business started to thrive. Eme was making some money and also began to save. Meanwhile, Ucha, unlike Eme, went to a very large city called Akeo. Far from the city of Ed, Akeo was well known for its extravagant lifestyle, and only the elite and prominent people lived in Akeo. In less than a month, Ucha squandered all the money that Moti had divided between him and his brother. He began to live in misery and poverty. He went from frequenting clubs and spending money on women to cleaning bathrooms and working as a doorman. One day, Ucha couldn't take it anymore. He told himself that his father was very rich, so why should he be suffering in some random city? However, he knew he couldn't go back. He remembered that when he had first arrived in Akeo and was mingling with the elite and millionaires in high places, he had heard about a woman named Aolo, who could turn a peasant into a billionaire. It was said that most of the millionaires in Akeo had gained their wealth through Aolo, but her rules were strict, and the price to pay was not fair. Many people who gained their wealth through her ended up losing their lives or going insane within a period of 3 to 5 years. Ucha thought long and hard and decided that he would consult Aolo to become very rich. With the wealth he would gain from her, he would marry a beautiful woman and take her to meet his father, Moti. The next day, he began his search for Aolo. It didn't take long because she was quite popular and known for her spiritual powers in Akeo. When he arrived there, he saw many luxurious cars parked outside. Unlike other sorcerers who lived in huts and shabby places, Aolo lived in a very large and beautiful mansion. Aolo warmly welcomed Ucha and gave him great hospitality. It was as if she knew Ucha was hungry and exhausted. She ordered her maid to serve him a delicious meal with various wines, and after he finished eating and drinking, Aolo took Ucha to a very large room with a king-size bed and asked him to sleep and rest. While Ucha slept, he had a dream. In his dream, he found himself in a bright white room. He saw Aolo sitting on the floor with a calabash in front of her. She gestured for Ucha to sit in front of her and then said to him, "I know you are here for wealth, like your peers, but I can see that you come from a rich family. The men who come seeking my assistance are men with no hope of success in life, but you are different. I am on a mission to prove my dignity, and I cannot do this without money. That is why I need your help, Aolo." "Oh, really? I would advise you to strive to complete your mission without my help, but if you insist on getting my help, I will have to grant your request." "I insist. Make me rich, make me prosperous, make me an influential and prominent figure in Akeo. I must warn you, there is a price to be paid, rules to be followed, and there are consequences and repercussions if you deviate or err in carrying them out. I am willing and ready to take on any task, as long as I remain rich." Aolo laughed at his determination. She dipped her hand into the calabash in front of her and pulled out a very large snake. The snake had beautiful scales, patterned like those of a peacock. The snake slithered through her hands and crawled toward Ucha. Ucha was terrified and tried to move, but Aolo warned him not to move. With great wealth comes great responsibility and courage. If you cannot face a male snake, how can you handle great wealth? Aolo said. The snake suddenly stopped and transformed into a very beautiful and sexy woman. Her eyes were blue, and her skin was as smooth as silk. The woman sat next to Ucha, holding his arms as if they were married. "You are lucky, she has accepted you. This is your goddess of wealth." I will give you a bag with her inside. Every time you sleep with her, she will fill the bag with money the next morning. Whenever you need money, just open the bag. She will crawl out and transform into a woman and will return to the bag when you finish sleeping with her. Ucha smiled at Aola's words. He believed the task would be very easy. All I need to do is sleep with such a beauty and I will be rich. Why didn't I come to you before? He said to her. There are 3 rules you must follow. Number 1, you must ensure that you sleep with her at least twice a week. Number 2, no one must see her except you. What about the 3rd rule? I will reveal it in due time. The woman transformed back into a snake and crawled back into the calabash. Immediately, Ola closed the calabash, and Ucha woke up from his sleep. It was already morning, and when he checked the time and date, he realized that he had spent 3 weeks in Ola's house. When he left the room, he saw Ola waiting for him in front of the room. She gave him the same bag that was shown in the dream and then reminded him not to forget the rules she gave him. Ucha thanked Ola and safely took the bag back to the small room where he lived. He placed the bag inside the wardrobe and at midnight opened it. The snake came out, as Ola explained, and transformed into a very beautiful woman. Ucha slept with the woman, who was the snake, and she returned to the bag after Ucha finished, exactly as Ola had shown him. The next morning, when Ucha opened the bag, it was full of money. He couldn't believe his eyes, he was very happy. The first thing he bought was a very large safe, in which he placed the bag that Ola had given him. Ucha began to live in great style. Every night he slept with the snake and was rewarded with money. He became very popular in the city of Ekeo, and many women wanted him, so he had no trouble finding a wife for himself because of Ola's wealth. One day, Ucha met a very beautiful woman named Shaw, whom he admired and adored deeply. He decided to take her to the city to meet his father. He approached Shaw and told her that he loved her and wanted to make her his wife. Shaw looked at his expensive clothes and luxurious car. She was impressed by his wealth and agreed to marry him. Ucha took Shaw to his house, but when they entered his room, he was shocked to see Ola inside his room. Shaw couldn't see Ola. Ucha quickly left the room and went to the living room, where he found Ola already waiting for him. What's the problem? Why are you here? I haven't broken any rules so far. You are about to break one of them. The 3rd and most important rule is that you must not sleep with any other woman besides the snake. If I can't sleep with any other woman, how will I have children? You told me that you were determined to pay any price. This is one of the many prices you have to pay. The moment you betray the snake, you will go mad and eventually die. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. Ucha felt his world shattering around him. He had thought the task would be easy, but now he was faced with an impossible choice. Ola's stern warning echoed in his mind as he tried to come to terms with his predicament. "Why didn't you tell me about this third rule earlier?" Ucha demanded. Ola's expression softened slightly. "I wanted to test your resolve. You asked for wealth and power without considering the sacrifices involved. True riches come with a cost." Ucha sighed deeply. "So, I can't have a family. I can't love another woman." Ola shook her head. "You can love her, but you cannot sleep with her. The bond between you and the snake must remain unbroken. This is the nature of the pact." Defeated, Uche nodded. "I understand." Sure, oblivious to the conversation happening right in front of her, looked confused when Uche returned. "What's wrong, my love?" "Nothing," Uche forced a smile. "Let's just go back to Ekeo for now." Over the next few weeks, Uche tried to balance his double life. He kept Shaw close but never allowed their relationship to progress to the point where he would have to break the pact. He continued to sleep with the snake, ensuring his wealth continued to grow. But the strain of maintaining this facade began to wear on him. Shaw noticed the change. "You seem distant," she said one evening. "Is something troubling you?" Ucha, unable to share the truth, simply reassured her with vague promises and empty words. He felt trapped, his dreams of a normal life slipping further away with each passing day. One night, as he was preparing to sleep with the snake, he heard a knock on his door. Startled, he quickly hid the bag and opened the door to find Shaw standing there, tears in her eyes. "I know there's something you're not telling me," she said. "I can't keep living like this, in the dark. Please, tell me what's going on." Torn between his love for Shaw and his fear of Ola's wrath, Uche hesitated. But the desperation in Shaw's eyes pushed him to a decision. He led her to the living room and sat her down. "Shaw, there's something you need to know," he began. "When I came to Ekeo, I was desperate for wealth. I made a pact with a powerful woman named Ola. She gave me this wealth, but in return, I have to sleep with a snake that transforms into a woman. It's the source of my riches." Shaw gasped, her face paling. "A snake? You're sleeping with a snake?" Uche nodded, shame flooding him. "Yes. And if I ever break this pact, I will lose everything, go mad, and eventually die. That's why I can't be with you the way you want." For a moment, Shaw was silent, absorbing the enormity of Ucha's confession. Then, without a word, she stood and left the room. Ucha watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and despair. The days that followed were torturous for Ucha. Shaw avoided him, and his once thriving social life began to crumble as rumors about his strange behavior spread. The wealth that had once brought him joy now felt like a heavy burden, trapping him in a life of isolation and deceit. One evening, as Ucha prepared for another night with the snake, there was a commotion outside his house. Peeking through the window, he saw Shaw leading a group of villagers, their faces lit with determination. "Ucha," Shaw called out, "we know the truth. We've come to free you from this curse." Panicked, Ucha rushed to the bedroom to hide the bag, but it was too late. The villagers stormed in, their eyes widening at the sight of the snake transforming into a woman. "Stop!" Ucha shouted. "You don't understand. If you interfere, I'll lose everything." But the villagers, driven by fear and superstition, seized the bag and threw it into the fire. The snake woman let out a blood-curdling scream before dissolving into ashes. In that instant, Uche felt a searing pain in his head. He collapsed, writhing on the floor as his mind was overwhelmed with visions of madness. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Shaw's strict face, filled with regret. When Ucha awoke, he found himself in a small, dark room. His head throbbed with pain, and he struggled to remember what had happened. Gradually, the memories came flooding back: the pact, the snake, the villagers. He was in a mental asylum, he realized with horror. The curse had taken its toll, just as Allah had warned. Stripped of his wealth and sanity, Ucha spent his days in a fog of confusion and despair. Back in the village of Oya, Ema's life had taken a different turn. His vegetable business had flourished, and he had become a beloved member of the community. His kindness and generosity won him the hearts of the villagers, and he found himself living a simple but fulfilling life. One day, as he was tending to his vegetable stand, he received a letter from his father, Moti. The letter brought news of Ucha's downfall and a plea for Ema to return home. Moti, now a broken man, needed his son's wisdom and strength to rebuild their family empire. With a heavy heart, Ema decided to return to Ed. He bid farewell to the villagers of Oya, promising to visit them whenever he could. As he made his way back home, he couldn't help but think of the lessons he had learned, that true wealth came not from money, but from the love and respect of those around him. Upon his return, Ema was greeted with open arms by his father. Together, they began the arduous task of restoring the family's business, this time with a focus on integrity and compassion. Ema's experiences had taught him the value of humility and hard work, and he was determined to lead by example. Years passed, and the family empire grew stronger than ever, built on the foundation of Ema's principles. Though he never forgot the tragic fate of his brother, Ema found solace in knowing that he had stayed true to his values. In the end, it was not the wealth or power that defined Ema's legacy, but the kindness and generosity that had guided him through life's trials. And so, the story of the two brothers served as a timeless reminder that true riches lie not in material possessions, but in the strength of one's character and the love of those we hold dear.